Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to start again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Hi everyone, welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tamprani. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines before we jump into our first story. Gazan officials say that 45 people are killed in Israeli strikes that set ablaze the tents of displaced Palestinians, as Israel said the attack killed 2 senior Hamas operatives. More than 2,000 people have been buried in Papua New Guinea landslide that destroyed a remote highland village. The government warns as it calls for international help in the rescue efforts. Spain pledges €1 billion in military aid to Ukraine as Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky sign a security deal. China expresses strong opposition to a group of U.S. lawmakers' visit to Taiwan in a show of support for the self-ruled island. Early voting began in South Africa's general election as those who must work on polling days or who have special needs were given a chance to cast their ballots. Billionaire tech mogul Elon Musk's startup xAI raises $6 billion from investors in an increasingly crowded artificial intelligence market. Men's world number 2 Yannick Sinner and women's 8th seed Ons Jabeur cruise into the second round of the French Open. Both register routine victories in the respective openers. Taiwan continues to live under the fear of a Chinese invasion. The massive military drills launched by China are over, but Chinese ships continue to test the waters around Taiwan. The U.S. continues to back Taiwan, but how far can Washington go to protect the territory, which Beijing says will retake for sure? Watch our next report for more details.
China continues to probe Taiwan. After holding mega military drills, the Chinese jets and naval vessels continue to keep Taiwan on the edge. Taipei says that in the past 24 hours, it detected 21 Chinese military aircraft and 15 Navy or Coast Guard vessels around its territory. China also readying to invade the island nation with an armada of ferries and civilian vessels. According to reports, Chinese military could use civilian vessels as amphibious landing craft. The civilian vessel could include dozens of gigantic roll-on, roll-off ferries that can each carry hundreds of armored vehicles. A visiting US lawmaker affirmed Washington's support for Taipei against Chinese aggression. This is the first congressional visit to the self-ruled island since it swore in a new president.
For all democracies must stand together against aggression and tyranny, whether it's Putin in Russia, the Ayatollah in Iran, or Chairman Xi next door to us in China.
The words of support for Taipei drew a sharp response from Beijing.
世界上只有一个中国，台湾是中国。
China firmly opposes US-Taiwan military ties, opposes arming Taiwan, and urges relevant US congressmen to stop playing the Taiwan card and stop interfering in China's internal affairs.
停止支持纵容台独分裂势力。
Last week, during the two-day drills, China vowed that independence forces would be left with their heads broken and blood flowing. 3D animated videos showed missiles raining down on Taiwanese cities. Beijing has in recent years upped military pressure on Taiwan, maintaining a near daily presence of warplanes, drones and naval vessels around the island. The US is also quietly preparing to checkmate the dragon. American troops are boosting their presence in nearby Philippines. According to Wall Street Journal, the US and Philippine Marines arrived recently in waves on an island nearly 160 kilometers from the southern tip of Taiwan. China regards Taiwan as a renegade province that must come under its control by force if necessary. The US, like most countries, does not have formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but is bound by its own laws to provide the island with the means to defend itself. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
We are now being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis. He's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. Will China attack Taiwan? That's the question that many are asking.
Well, of course, until Xi Jinping makes a decision and starts actions, the answer is maybe. And certainly the risk is growing. The capability, I think, is already there. I know a lot of people are using this figure of 2027 by some U.S. naval experts, but I think that they could go tomorrow if they felt like they needed to. And the longer it goes, the greater their capacity gets. But listen, this would be a catastrophic event for everyone involved. It would be very painful for China itself. And I know that that's going to give them some pause to be able to start, because the economic ramifications for their country would be enormous. But so would it be, obviously, for Taiwan, but including the United States, if especially we chose to actually intervene on behalf of Taiwan, because militarily we are not anywhere near as capable in that area than some people seem to think. And I think it would go very badly for us.
And how far would the Biden administration go to protect Taiwan, in your opinion?
Well, that's the other $1 million question, because depending on what day you want to be talking about, President Biden has said we will intervene on the behalf of Taiwan. Then later they'll kind of walk that back and say, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. If you just look at the way things have been going and the statements that have been made, and I'm talking about the actions in the Indo-Pacific of some of our, admirals and generals, the actions that were taken on bolstering our defenses on the Philippines, on Palau, several other places, it certainly looks like we think we might engage. And again, I think that would be a catastrophic mistake and something that the United States should not do.
Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for joining us on this Memorial Day, and I hope you had an enjoyable weekend as we remember our fallen soldiers. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
The death toll from the overnight Israeli strikes on Rafah has risen to 45 as per Gaza officials. The Israeli onslaught remains unabated, even as the International Court of Justice ordered the Rafah offensive to be halted. The latest round of airstrikes also comes hours after Hamas launched rockets towards Israel, impeding fresh ceasefire efforts. The Israeli strikes set ablaze tents of displaced Palestinians in Rafah. The strike took place in a Tel al-Sultan neighborhood in western Rafah, where thousands of people were taking shelter after Israeli forces began a ground offensive in eastern Rafah 2 weeks ago. Chaotic scenes unfolded as paramedics in ambulances raced to the attack site and evacuated the wounded, including children. Palestinians looked through the rubble in search of their loved ones.
We were sitting at the door of the house safely. Suddenly we heard the sound of a missile. We ran and found the street covered in smoke. We did not see anything. We went into the house and did not find anyone when we checked over the wall, and found a girl and a young man who had been cut into pieces.
The Israeli military said its Air Force struck a Hamas compound in Rafah and that the strikes were carried out with, quote, precision ammunition and on the basis of precise intelligence. It said it took out Hamas's chief of staff for the West Bank and another senior official who was behind deadly attacks on Israelis. The strikes have drawn condemnation from across the Arab world. Qatar has said Israel's latest strikes could hinder talks towards a truce and hostage release deal. Qatar, alongside the United States and Egypt, has been engaged in months of talks aimed at securing a truce deal between Israel and Hamas. But behind the scenes, negotiations reached a stalemate earlier this month as Israel sent ground forces into Rafah. Officials say the talks are set to resume next week as the war rages on. Israeli strikes came hours after Hamas had on Sunday, for the first time in months, launched a barrage of rockets at Tel Aviv and other areas in central Israel. The attack sent people running into bomb shelters. Israeli army said at least 8 rockets were fired, and Israeli air defenses took out most of the rockets, and no casualties were reported. However, the attack was seen as an effort by Hamas to signal that it remains undefeated. All right, for more on this, our correspondent Jody Cohen sent us this report from Israel. Let's take a listen.
I'm in Sderot on the border with Gaza, where booms have been heard today overhead. The EU's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell accused Israel of ignoring the World Court ruling on a Rafah offensive. Israel's top military prosecutor has said the very grave incident is under review and that the IDF regrets any harm to non-combatants during war. However, Israel has also said the strike was against legitimate targets under international law and came hours after Hamas fired a rocket barrage from Rafah at at central Israel. War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz said the barrage proves the need for Israel's operation in Rafah. Meanwhile, Qatar has warned the hostage talks could be hindered, although Hamas had previously denied reports that talks for a hostage truce deal would resume on Tuesday. This is Jodie Cohen for WION World is One.
The United States is expected to reverse its ban on the sale of offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia. The ban placed by President Biden's administration nearly 3 years ago may be lifted in as little as time as under a week. The United States suspended sale of such armaments to the kingdom earlier in 2021 in response to a Saudi-led coalition conduct during an intervention in the Yemen civil war. The Arab coalition entered the war in 2015 in opposition to Iranian-backed Houthis, following the rebels' seizure of the capital city of Sana'a and the ouster of the Yemeni government. The U.S. has been reconsidering overturning the ban since the UN-brokered truce in 2022 saw the kingdom dial down its